Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Swadhin and today we'll be learning React Lifecycle. Let's get started. So what is this lifecycle method? Each component have several lifecycle method where we can hook into and we can change something. What do you mean by that? Like as a human, we have several life cycles from a child to an old man. We have certain age life cycles. What if we have some power to hook into a particular age and change something? It will be wonderful, right? But unfortunately, we don't have that power. But in case of React, we have lifecycle methods where we can hook into and we can change something in our React application. Let me quickly move to our diagram to understand what I'm saying. So basically in a React application, we have three phases: mounting, updating, and unmounting. And whatever you are seeing here, all these are some methods which will be called when we're going through the phase. And we have a control where we can put some code into this. So first we'll go to the mounting part. Mounting is the part it got executed when first time your element is inserted into DOM. Okay, so whenever in mounting phase we have three mainly important methods, that is constructor, render, and component did mount. The constructor will be called whenever you are instantiating our component object. So it will be first one to call. So if you want to put something in constructor, you can, that should be called whenever they are instantiating the object of our component. The second one, which will be called, is called as render. And apart from all this method which we are seeing here, only this render method is compulsory. All these other methods are optional. Okay, mean all these other lifecycle methods are optional. Only the render method is compulsory for every component. Okay, so and all this method will be available in a class component, not in functional component. Is all these methods will be available in our class component. And first thing will be calling constructor, then it will be calling render method where our JXX code is rendering. Once we have the virtual DOM created, here we'll have the virtual DOM created, then React DOM library will add that to the original DOM, mean our actual DOM. Once it is added, we'll be firing this event, componentDidMount. It will be fired when our element is inserted into DOM. So it is the correct place to call all the API related call. Means if you want to call an API and get something, this method you can use to do that. We'll see that in action. Basically, this is the method will be called when our element is inserted into the DOM. Okay, so let me quickly go to the VS code and see that in action. So this is our code which I've already created, and I have created one class component. As I told, all this lifecycle method will be available to our class component, not to a functional component. So I've created all this method here, and I have added a console log in all the part so that we can identify which one is called when. Okay, and let me call this lifecycle method inside our app component. So to call that, first I need to import that. Let me import lifecycle from. Okay, so now I have imported it. Let me add this inside our app JSX. So I'll just call this lifecycle. So I'm calling this lifecycle inside my component. So if I go to my browser, as I told you, whenever it will be inserted, means whenever I'm putting that here, it will be inserted into DOM. So if I go to my browser here, so this is an app which is running, and you can see that we have three log displayed inside our console, that is constructor, render, and component did mount. And if you remember, in our diagram we have constructor, render, and component did mount. So whenever your element is inserted into DOM, this three method will be called. If you want to do something inside this method, you can do that before here. Okay, so so generally in a lifecycle method, if you go to the component did mount here, we call APIs to get some values. because now our element is inserted. We can call some APIs to get some data, and we will do whatever operation on that data. Okay, so this is the first phase we have. Then we can go to our second phase we have, that is updating phase. And in updating phase, there will be two methods which will be called. The first one is render again, because render method will be called always whenever you are changing something. Okay, because it will re-render all the JSX we have, and it will form again a virtual DOM for us. Okay, so in updating phase we have two methods mainly which will be called, that is render, and there is something called componentDidUpdate. So when this render will be called, there are three conditions. Okay, the first one is when we have a new prop, means from a parent component, if I will pass a new prop, means if I will suppose, I'll give you the example, the first one, I'll go to app component. Okay, and here,
so I've already defined a state here in the app component that is called text, and the value of that is that underscore value. I'll pass this value inside this lifecycle component by using a text prop, and I'll assign the state value to this text prop by calling our state method, state property, state.text. So now we have assigned this value, and inside our lifecycle component we are accessing this value using our props, and we are printing that thing. But next thing is we want to see our updation phase. So for that we need to change our state. So to change our state, I'll add a button, and the name of the button will be change state. And inside the button I'll attach an on-click event handler, because on click of that I want to change the state, and that will access to a arrow function. Inside this arrow function I'll change the set state property, and I'll try to change this text value which is there inside a value. Okay, so I'll change and try to change that thing. For that I need to create an object first, and this text will have whatever there before, means I will access whatever the value it is already having, and I'll attach a new value to that. So in my case I'm attaching the same value again, value underscore value I'm attaching. So this will change our state. Okay, so now if I save this and if I go to my page, observe here we have three already rendered method, that is constructor, render, and componentDidMount. When I click on change state, observe what will happen here. If I click on this, see we have two new methods, render and componentDidUpdate. Means it again called this render method, and there is a new method we have that is called componentDidUpdate, and which is basically the second phase of our. You can see that we have a render method and componentDidUpdate. But one thing you'll observe here, if I click here again, okay, there is one more method we are getting, that is shouldComponentUpdate. Okay, that is not there inside this diagram. So this shouldComponentUpdate will be called before render method. Okay, and this is basically here. Observe, think this is basically here, the shouldComponentUpdate, and on the basis of this shouldComponent, this render will be called or not called. Means this shouldComponentUpdate will define whether we need to update our component or not. How? Let me show you that. So let me go to our Lifecycle.js. In our shouldComponentUpdate, where we are this method return true or false. If you're returning true, then it will update our DOM, means it will call the render method and the other one, the componentDidUpdate. Okay, but if I make it to false now, if I make it to false, and if I go to my page and if I change state now, see we are getting only shouldComponentUpdate. We are not calling the render and the componentDidUpdate method. So using this method we can control whether our component will re-render or not. Okay, so this is again an important methods, and here this component actually take two arguments, that is props, next props, and next state. Means whatever, if any prop changes happen, the latest prop it will take. If any state changes happen, it will take the latest state, and here we can compare that with the old state, and we can decide whether it should be returned false or true. This facility we are getting with shouldComponentUpdate. Okay, and it will be called before render method. It will be called before render method. So we can update our render method in two ways: when we have the new value for props, when we are changing the state. The third one is force update. So that also I'll show you. If I go to my method app.js here, before render, okay, here I'll call this in app.js, before return I will call this force update. This is a method already there. You can see this one. Okay, if I call this method, so it will also call the phase. See, should component update, should component 51 time it called. Okay, means it will also trigger the updation phase, but it is not advised to use this force update because it will play with your DOM. Okay, so we as a good developer, we don't use force update to update our DOM. Okay, we use should component update or component did update to do something. Okay, so I'll remove this one. So the next and the last part is the unmounting part. Okay, and one more thing here, the component did update will happen after we are changing the DOM. Means it will render the new DOM, virtual DOM, and this will change our actual DOM. After that, this method will be called. Okay, and the last one is we have is unmounting phase. Means when our element will be deleted from the DOM, means that will be removed from our DOM, then this method will be called. How? We can see that in an example. What I will add the lifecycle method I'm always showing to the user, correct? If you go to our this page, you can see that this lifecycle method we are always showing. This is our lifecycle component. But what if we can put a condition for that? Means will not show always. So I'll add another state inside our, that will be toggle. Okay, and this will basically initially it should be true. Okay, and I'll use this toggle here, and I'll use this toggle to whether to render this or not. So this dot state dot toggle. Okay, and I'll use a ternary operator for that. Not here, I'll use here. Okay, and after that I'll use this one null, and I can give this. Means if this condition will satisfy, then only I will render this one, otherwise I will render null. So if I initially the value of toggle is true, or it is false, right? Okay, it is true. So let me go to, so I'm able to see that. Okay, so what I will do, I'll create another button like we had for changing state. Okay, this button we have, I'll just copy paste or whatever there inside it, and I will change the state to my, see, on click of that, I don't want to change this text property, I want to change the toggle property. So that will be toggle equal to not toggle. Means whatever there inside, or I'm just inverting whatever there inside that, this dot dot toggle. Okay, okay, I forgot to add a, yeah, that's why it is happening. Toggle, I'm using twice. Let me remove this, and there should be one comma like this. Yeah, so now we are able to, what I'm doing basically, I'm inverting what is there inside this toggle. I'm just inverting that. Means that if it will be true, then it will be false, otherwise vice versa. Okay, and I'll change this method name to toggle. Okay, so now if I save it, now if I go to browser and I click on this toggle, observe what will happen. We got this method called componentWillUnmount. If again I clicked on that, I'll be getting all the three method which I already had, this one. But when I call this, toggle will, means when it is removed from the DOM, this componentWillUnmount will be called. That is our last method, basically the unmounting phase. So in this phase, basically we can clear our connections, we can clear what is the garbage value we have, that part we do it here. Okay, componentWillUnmount. So in React lifecycle we have three phases mainly: mounting, updating, and mounting. And the important part which is we should remember in lifecycle, this render is only compulsory method, all other methods are optional. Okay, so that's all about lifecycle.